Hello, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Andrew Hughes. I'm the CEO of TripShift. I'm joined today by Gemma, who's our CFO, and also by Steve, who's our CTO. Welcome to everybody who's joined us, and thanks for the opportunity to allow us to tell you a bit more about TripShift. We're hugely excited by what we've done so far, and really keen to get more people involved. Just a quick note, we are recording this, so everybody should have had notification of that we're recording it, so we'll try and channel it later to participants. Okay, so TripShift, we started back in 2020. Since then, we've been developing technology behind the scenes, but TripShift now is primarily a B2B software as a service platform, a product that's designed to help businesses meet the evolving climate change ESG regulations. Specifically, at the moment, we're talking about TCFD, which is the Climate Financial Disclosures Regulation, which has been introduced already in the UK as of April this year, and is shortly to be introduced across the EU, along with draft legislation that's already started its journey through the US legal system. The key part of this, from our point of view, was that in COP26, it was enshrined that Scope 3 emissions from a business perspective will also include employee commuting, business travel, as well as transport and logistics. That's both part of the company's own emissions, but also the emissions of companies who are involved in supply chains. So, if you're involved in a supply chain with a larger corporate, even as a smaller business now, you're going to come under pressure from that corporate to manage and monitor your emissions, because they also have to account for that as part of their supply chain. Just to give people an idea of our thinking to start that process, we were looking at this from a business and an employer's perspective. It was our original starting point, and we were kind of assuming that, a company with, I don't know, maybe 50 to 100, 150, even a couple of hundred employees, if you suddenly have to account for and track those employees' movements, it fairly quickly becomes a fairly big logistical problem. You could do it in a number of ways. You could ask employees to fill in weekly spreadsheets or weekly questionnaires about how they travel. You could ask them to, you could try and link it to maybe company travel expense forms, all those sort of things. But it very quickly becomes quite a big job just to actually manage the data or collect the data. You almost generate a situation with a few hundred employees where you're actually employing somebody just to chase down the data of how people are moving to and from work. And that's before you've even factored in the fact, you've got to do this in a way that employees are comfortable with and happy with, and it's not becoming too much of an administrative burden on them as individuals and employees. We were looking at that problem, saw it was huge, and simply put, TripShift, we came up with the fact that we needed to automate the process, was to allow businesses to collect the data in the first place and then process it and track it, and that allows them in turn to meet their TCFD and whatever other legislative requirements come along. We set out with the intention to make this a product that actually delivered some impact as well. And what we wanted to do there was really make it a win-win-win for both businesses, for their employees, and actually the employees, let's change the employees, let's call them people, because that's what they are, right? They're people. And we also wanted the environment as well. Obviously, if we can make some reductions in transport emissions, that's a huge win for the environment. Transport globally actually represents about 25% of total global carbon emissions. So anything we can do to make changes or make savings in those carbon emissions is a big win for the environment. The business win is the ability for them to track and collect their data, and that's in an automated sense. Once they've got a baseline picture of what that data looks like, once they can visualize that data, you can start to map the data, you can start to understand where you can make reductions. And obviously those reductions, if you're assuming that carbon is going to be linked to taxation at some point, then those reductions represent reduced taxation potentially. But they also represent opportunities to perhaps make efficiency savings in how you're operating. If you can do things in a more carbon-friendly fashion, it might highlight areas where you can reduce operating costs or streamline your processes to make your operations run more smoothly. And the final level of that business sort of platform is the reporting element. VAT in the UK at the moment is very simple from a business perspective. It's a digital process. We click the button and it goes off to the tax man. We want to get the reporting process automated to the point that once we know what that the financial legislation and the financial requirements are understood, then we will automate our reporting process to the point of you being able to compile the data within TripShift, click the button, submit that to the relevant authority, along with any verification or auditing data that's required to support it. The win for the business there is we've automated data collection, we've simplified their resource, we will have reduced their carbon emissions along that journey, and finally we've allowed them to answer their legislative requirements and their compliance requirements. Coming on to the people, I think there's a general acceptance now around the world globally that carbon is a bad thing, and that we need to take steps to limit the amount of carbon we produce in order to limit the impact of climate change on the planet. However, I also think that whilst a lot of people are willing and interested and prepared to make changes, there are also an awful lot of people who don't actually necessarily understand how they can make changes, or have the view that, you know, a small change they make is not going to have much of an impact in the bigger picture. So, and again, you know, when scientists and the media and journalists, wherever it may be, talk about carbon, they talk about millions of tons and millions of tons. I mean, it's a big number, we get that, but you know, the people generally don't have a measure on, you know, how big is a million tons. Does anybody understand what a million tons is? Never mind a single ton of carbon. If you don't give people a way of visualizing or understanding it, it's very difficult for them to feel that they're making any sort of impact or change. So we set out to produce the app, which is the sort of the people recording element of the TripShift platform. We've designed that to be a space that is engaging and educational to the individual, to encourage them ultimately to move better. And of course, if everybody starts making those small changes to move better, then those small changes add up to a bigger overall change. And finally, the environment. Obviously, I already mentioned that, you know, 25% of global carbon emissions are down to transport. Effectively, if we think TCFD regulations at the moment are impacting sort of FTSE companies, employers that have more than 500 employees, as soon as you start to add up all these numbers, you know, we expect that in reality, in several years' time, we will be able to point to TripShift and say we have literally highlighted savings of millions of tons of carbon globally. And that's our ambition. I'm now going to share the dashboard screen. So this is TripShift data. It's important to emphasize that, you know, when a business has an account, they have a private portal which they can only access. It's GDPR controlled, passwords access, that sort of thing, and it's only available to them as the subscriber. Here I'm using TripShift data, which is obviously data we control. So here's our dashboard view. This is the entry point into the platform. It gives me an immediate overall view of what's happening. So here I've got total carbon emissions, so I can see what we've done this week, or total carbon emissions in the last 24 hours, what we've done this month, and I've also got a total distance that we've travelled. Just going to click on to tracking. I'm just going to move through these very quickly. Tracking, again, TripShift data here, but this illustrates our team's carbon that we've created over the last 7 days. And we can chop this up by various teams or by time frame. The distance thing gives you the same data, but giving you a carbon profile based on distancing. Again, we can view that in various ways. And obviously, as the client, you'll be able to chop this data up to fit whatever you need it to do. And same here with the averages. It gives us the average carbon profiles across the various forms of transport that your organisation has used. I'm just going to jump quickly on to reduce. Part of TripShift's strength is that we focus just on transport and travel, and obviously carbon scope 3 emissions is a lot wider piece than that. So we will be partnered with a variety of professional partners, and you can see here some of our early partners are listed. Octopus Electric Vehicles, Trees for Travel, Clarisis, who are all working with us so far. They're all customers as well, I'm pleased to say. We're all with positive feedback. But this will very much be a professional marketplace where we will be able to work with other organisations and partner with other organisations and integrate with other organisations to feed TripShift data into those various platforms. Going to jump onto the reporting. And again, this ultimately, as I touched on earlier, it will be an automated report. You'll be able to configure based on the outputs you require, but it will be an automated report. We haven't yet got to the automation element of that introduced, but at the moment we produce that manual reporting for the clients. They can specify a date range and we will produce those reports on a regular basis for them. Ultimately, that report will include all the mapping, all the data they've produced. And as I say, it will be automated and it will also be shareable to be able to pass that on to an auditor, third-party partner, their annual impact report, or indeed the taxman. So that's where we're heading with that. The final tab there you can see there is just how a business will manage its own portal. They can create their own teams. The idea of teams is quite interesting because I'll touch on it in the gamification elements of what we do within the app. But actually, competition is good. We're all a little bit narcissistic. We all like to compete from time to time. And creating competition within an organisation in a gentle way is a good way of actually achieving reductions. And what I mean by here, it could be the London office versus the Paris office, who's going to produce the lowest carbon this month. It could be sales versus accounts, who's going to save the most carbon this month. There are ways of generating competition, which in turn generates reductions quite subtly, but actually, you're achieving two things there. You're achieving a reduction, but also you're achieving continued engagement with employees, which makes it easier to keep up that reduction process. Okay, so I've just opened up the app here. I'm using the Android version of the app here. We have both Android and iOS versions of the app running, both available in their respective app stores. And from a consumer point of view, from an individual point of view, they're both free to download. Businesses accounts use this as the data collection point that feeds into their dashboard. So going back to my starting point, this feeling that people, are concerned about carbon but don't really know what to do about it. Millions of tons of carbon being a difficult thing for the average person to judge and base their daily travels on. So we wanted to make this very visual. We wanted to make it very obvious, and we wanted to make it very human in how it works. And it's very simple. There's a pie chart in the middle there, and there's some basic numbers telling you how far out. This is my own data from today, so telling you how far I've travelled today and how I've travelled and how much carbon I've created. But more importantly, you'll see the visual. We call it a living environment. I've not been too bad today. I've been on the train and I've been walking, so I've not been driving a car far or anything like that. So the sun's out and there's not many clouds in the sky. There's some trees growing. And if I turned the sound up, you'd be hearing the birds singing in the trees as well. If I'd been sitting in a car for 4 hours today, you would be seeing a much grayer environment. There'll obviously be more clouds in the sky. The sun wouldn't be as on show. The trees would be dying and you won't be hearing the birds singing. It's a very quick visual reminder of what you've done today in terms of, sun's out, good, sun's not out, not so good. That's something that we can all equate to and understand very quickly and measure. We do measure this on a day-by-day basis as well. So if you do have to drive a car every day, we recognise small improvements. We measure on small improvements. So even if you spend 5 minutes less in a car today than you did yesterday, we recognise that as an improvement and your environment will improve as a result. I'm just going to jump through screens here very quickly. We call this the movement screen. This is just a more macro level breakdown of your data. So here you go. I've been on the train today and I've been walking. We can look at this across day, month, or year. Obviously, this just gives you the respective data for those months. And I can compare it year on year, week on week, month on month, and so on, just by flicking around on the screens. Here, I guess, is the real sort of magic of what TripShift does. What we've done, the real secret to TripShift is understanding not just where you're moving, but how you're moving. So here's my journey this morning from my home through to the office. I walked to the station. As you can probably, I'm just going to zoom in slightly. So there's my walk to the station. Here's my train journey into work via East Croydon coming into London Bridge. You'll capture me jumping off the train at London Bridge, and I have to switch platforms and move to another platform and then jump on another train coming through to Waterloo East. Thereafter, I jump off the train there, and there's my walk from Waterloo East through Waterloo down to our office where I'm talking to you from now, just looking outside, looking at the Houses of Parliament across the bridge. So that's all automated, that's calculated automatically. We track your position, but more importantly, we're translating that position into how you're actually moving. Could be a train, plane, or automobile, or ferry, or an EV, or we've got about 50 different profiles built at the moment, but we will pick those up automatically. And of course, once we understand how you're moving, then we understand exactly how much carbon you're producing. A couple of things here to look at: the Move Better screen. This effectively is where this is individual to you as a user, and we will look at how you're travelling, and this will be the place where we start recommending how you move better. If you repeatedly drive past a train station every day and drive past it on your place to work, and you've got a train station somewhere near your office, we're going to start throwing up train lines to you, because that's an obvious way that you could move better by jumping out of the car and using public transport. The same applies to buses, trams, cycles, whatever's appropriate to you will come up will be fed to you as suggestions in the Move Better list as to how you individually can move better. The other thing, if we do make a mistake, if we did happen to make a mistake, I won't claim that the system is 100% accurate, but I'll claim it's in the very high 90s. But if we do make a mistake, obviously my train journey this morning, if that wasn't a train and it was a mistake and it was actually a bus, tap on it, I bring up what they call change mode. I can change the journey there to a bus. Very briefly, just to finish up on here, you end up with a profile page. We create leaderboards. Again, the secret here really is the leaderboard. This one is looking at your actual carbon based on how you move. You can introduce your friends. You're bringing them in via social media. But again, we're creating competition. And as soon as you have a group of friends there, I can tell you there I'm in a competition with my son and daughter, and obviously some of the team members here. As soon as you have that element of competition, people want to start beating each other. And it can be fairly contagious. We've seen this time and time again now with, if anybody's seen Duolingo, the language app, they have a very similar league system, and it's been a powerful engagement tool that they use. And so obviously we're looking to replicate that. Friends, of course, could also we'll be adding in teams as well there, so we can have that same team level interaction that we talked about in the business dashboard. It could be, again, that London office versus Paris office. You can set it up there. We also have a currency that we've created within the app. We call them TripShift points. We reward good behavior with TripShift points, and we compile a league table as well. And of course, from a revenue point of view, those TripShift points are effectively a currency, and we'll be seeking to monetize that on the consumer sense. That could be reductions on public transport fares, for example, or reduced bus fares, train fares. It could represent a discount against an electric bike, or even an electric car. There will be various partners there we can bring in, and of course we'll also bring in an absorption partner or a carbon offset partner that will allow both individuals and businesses to offset their carbon emissions when they're ready to do that. That's been a very quick run through of the TripShift dashboard and platform. I really have gone through it at quite a pace there, but obviously we were conscious of people's time on the call today. We are very happy to talk to people in more detail privately. Obviously, they can get in touch with us either via the Cedars platform or with us directly. My email is andrew@tripshift.co.uk. I'm going to end it there. I'm just going to hand over to Gemma, because I think it's Gemma just worth saying a quick few words on financial projections and our business planning for those on the call.
Thank you. I think it's good to know, just for the investors, how we've kind of broken down our planning. We've looked at what we want to achieve and how we need to get there. So from a revenue point of view, we've broken down any projections down to the size of customer, because obviously it doesn't matter which industry you're in. It's all dependent on how many employees you have, because that's going to be the driver of the pain each business is going to feel. So we've broken that down in our projections. We've also looked into how we raise funds and how we've done it today. We've kind of done small and often and been really prudent with our costs as we've been growing, spending our costs on the tech. Going forward, anything that we raise, everything will be really for sales and marketing and brand development. Primarily we need to increase our revenue to succeed. We've got customers on board who seem very happy. We just want to expand that. We're a small team at the moment, and we want to expand that as quickly as possible, and to grow quickly as possible. So that's where we are from the financials, I probably would say. Anything else you think I need to cover there, Andrew?
No, I think again, anybody wants any detailed information around the financial model that hasn't already had it, then they can contact us directly, and we'll be able to discuss all those assumptions and things we've made, and also the pricing models, that sort of thing. We can cover that privately.
Sure.
Steve, our CTO, I'm going to steal a little bit of his thunder, because of course we're already in terms of development here. You might think that a lot of investment, when there's technology involved, there's a sort of technology risk, but actually it's worth saying that we're beyond MVP, in as much as we've got a product that's working. So we've proven the technology, and therefore we've de-risked what we're doing now. So the investment we're looking at the moment is really about being able to grow the brand outreach of TripShift, get us in front of customers, We know where the customers are. In the UK, there's a list that's already defined for us. We've got 1,500 companies in those supply chains that are already impacted by TCFD. That's going to spread through Europe quickly and spread through the States quickly. The States are there. I think the American timeline is due to start in 2023. So for us now, the challenge is to grow quickly, build presence in those markets. Yes, we want to build some more technology as well. I'll hand it to Steve in a moment to talk about that. But our core technology position is in a good place. Steve.
Yes, thanks, Andrew. We've achieved all the challenges that we set out to do in terms of automatically tracking people's movements, in terms of understanding what mode of transport they're traveling on without any data input from them. So literally the phone can be in the back of the pocket and it will continue registering and automatically determining the carbon. That's the fundamental USP for the whole of the product. It's the automation that sits behind. It's never been done before. For us, clearly we have a plan in a minor sense compared to the marketing for building revenue. And so we have areas where we're going to be delivering an SDK for incorporation to other applications, so people can use the TripShift technology. We also have delivery of a white label configuration, so for corporates who want to use our application, we can turn the application to look with a certain branding as required. And also we have expansion. We also deliver the dashboard process, which will provide better and cleaner data analysis for any of our customers. So we provide further experiences and more graphical representation for their basic regulatory reports. So quite interesting stuff to go along, but our main emphasis is certainly for the time we've done the development, is that we are now addressing some of the business challenges in terms of adoption by their staff in using the application to ensure that it meets their privacy needs and their personal travel needs.
Excellent, thanks, Steve. I guess the two obvious bits that we haven't mentioned as well, of course, at the moment, from this impacts on both the financial model and the technology development, or the technology development plan, is that at the moment we're focusing very much on people and employees in that context. The logistics and transportation market, if you think about all the boxes of things being moved around the world, all of those, a box of goods produced in China being shipped to North America, the ability for us to be able to track the exact carbon of that journey based on how that box of goods is moving at the time, whether it's a container, a shipping container sitting on the back of a ship going across the Pacific, or whether it's a lorry being delivered to the final destination or point of sale, to be able to fine tune that carbon burn is going to be of critical importance to the logistics businesses and the owners of those products, the people who are selling those products, who are effectively going to have to account for that carbon. So we've got big plans both for the logistical industry, and that's probably going to be hardware tracking, obviously, rather than people tracking. And we also have another big market as well, which we are looking at how we work our way into that market, which is personal travel. I think mobility is a key enabler because it allows us collectively to earn livings. But part of the things we enjoy is the ability to be able to travel without worry on a holiday or for leisure. We want people to be able to carry on enjoying that by moving better, but look at how we can bring TripShift and awareness of carbon around specific journeys into holidays and holiday planning as well, which we think will be another big market for us to move into in the coming years. Thank you very much. It's been a real whistle stop. I appreciate a real whistle stop tour of TripShift and some of our plans. We'd love to talk to more of you directly. We're taking on customers now. We're building a pipeline all the time. investment. Obviously, we're looking for further investment to help us to achieve those goals. If anybody has any further questions or interest, then please contact us directly, and we will try and answer them as best we can. I think it's probably best for us to leave it there. Thank you from me. Well, thank you from me and from TripShift for giving us your time today. And we hope to be speaking to you soon. And we hope you all start your journeys tomorrow with TripShift. And of course, we want you all to be moving or to move better at the end of the day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.